So I grew up with crooked teeth in an Asian country where people didn't speak, well, English in the way that I liked it personally. And so I had to do a lot of work in order to get my communication skills, my speaking skills, and specifically my pronunciation to where it is today. And I wanted to do this video to share with you my top 5 tips on what I would tell my younger self to do if I had to do it all over again. So let's dive into it. Tip number 1 that I would recommend my younger self to do is to understand where you stand. So what do I mean by that? It means to do basically an assessment to see where are you right now. So younger Francis, where is your current position? This can be done by recording yourself so that you can listen to your own voice when you're speaking and you can understand, okay, I like this part of my voice, or I think, I feel like this part needs to improve. This is where I am right now. Similar to when you're doing like exercise, or you're starting your fitness journey. You want to say, okay, I'm pretty strong with my legs, but my upper body is pretty weak. So that's the equivalent. So you want to do that with your voice, your pronunciation in this case, or if you're learning to speak English or improve your English speaking, then that's what you're doing, is you're just doing an assessment to see where you are right now in your current position in your life. You can do this on your own, or if you happen to have a friend that you trust, that would be great too, because other people can give you, hopefully this friend that you trust can give you honest feedback. That's the important part, is they have to be able to give you honest feedback. And they're not just going to tell you like, you sound great. There's nothing wrong with the way that you speak. And even if they do honestly believe that, it's ultimately up to you to decide where you want to be. Like if you're not happy with the way that you sound, especially if you're coming from like a different country, like my partner came from Korea, right? She had to work a lot on her English speaking and her pronunciation. And from what I hear for a lot of people that come to Australia for like working holidays, one of the main reasons is they want to improve their English, which means that they are currently not totally satisfied with where they are with their English. So that's step number 1, is to just assess where you are, understand where you stand. Once you've done that, the next step, tip number 2 that I would recommend, is to have a clear goal post. So what this means when it comes to English speaking or your voice is to have a model of what you feel is where you want to go, what you want to sound like. So for example, for me, I grew up really loving American movies and TV shows, and I idolized actors like Johnny Depp, Tom Cruise. Obviously, I don't sound anything like them because I sort of deviated along the way, but I understood that was the direction I wanted to head in. I wanted to go towards a more American sound because I love the way that Americans tell stories and the way they sound when they do that, right? It could be different for you. Maybe you want to sound a bit more British because you love Tom Hiddleston, or you might have a different role model altogether. And that's okay. But the idea is to have a clear goal post so that number 1, you can base your next steps on this goal post. And number 2, it helps you to clearly visualize what success looks like for you. So when you start sounding a bit more like that goalpost, you'll be able to recognize, I'm getting closer. Understand where you are, step 1. Number 2, find your goalpost so that you can understand where you need to go, what direction you need to head in. Step number 3 is either the easiest or the hardest step, which is taking the first step. Now, ideally, this would be an action. So sometimes we might think, I am taking the first step. I'm thinking about improving. Thinking about improving is good, and I guess it does technically count as a step. But if you think about when you procrastinate, I used to be a big procrastinator when I was younger. And one of the main reasons was because I just didn't like the idea of doing the thing, or I thought that it was going to be so much more work than it actually was. And a lot of the time, the way that I fixed that was by actually just starting. So in school, it would just be like writing the first line in the essay. And suddenly it would just seem so much easier to do everything else. So once you've understood where you are, and number 2 is where you want to go, then it's just deciding on the first step and just having the courage to take that first step. in this case, for pronunciation, it could be once you've discovered your model and discovered what you need to work on. Let's say it's the sounds. Like you find that it's hard to make the same sounds in English compared to your normal, like your mother language. So the first step could be, okay, I'm just going to choose one word. It doesn't have to be a sentence, just one word that I'm having trouble with. I'm going to listen to that word. I'm going to try and copy that word like a parrot. And then I'm going to record myself doing it and I'm going to compare the sounds. Ideally, if you can see their mouth, you can then also try put maybe a mirror in front of you next to that video and see if you can copy the mouth and the tongue movements and just try and get the sound right for that word. And then once you get that word, you can then move on to the next word or the sentence. So that would be step number 3, is just to get started. I personally, it took me years to get to the point where I was kind of happy with my speaking. And one of the reasons why it took me so long is, number 1, I didn't even know that I needed to improve. When I did know that I needed to improve, I hesitated for a while before I actually did something about it. So that's step 1 to 3. Don't think about the mountain that you have to climb or potentially have to climb. Just think about one step you're going to put your next foot forward to, and that will make it a bit easier. The tip number 4, I don't hear people talking about this a lot when it comes to pronunciation and speaking, is to go slow to go fast. What does that mean? This means that before you run, you need to learn how to walk. Well, in this case, maybe even crawl. And what this looks like, think of your mouth and your tongue as muscles. And they are. It takes muscles, certain muscles in your mouth and your tongue to make the shapes and the sounds that you make when you speak. And similar to if you think about when you're learning, I have a guitar over here. So when you're learning guitar, if anyone's learned guitar before, you'll remember when you first started learning, you had to slowly learn the shape of the chord. It was really uncomfortable to make that really unnatural shape at first, and then slowly learn to transition to the next chord, until eventually, once you got used to it and that motion, you had to practice even the transition motion. Once you got used to it, you could start doing it a bit more naturally and a bit faster. Same with your voice. Same with your mouth. That's how your pronunciation can get better, is if you slowly just get used to the movement and the feeling and the shapes that your mouth and your tongue are making, and you try and experiment and alter it and adjust it until you get the sound that you're hearing from your source, your model. That's how you can start to slowly improve on your pronunciation. I feel like that's one of the keys. And if you don't learn music, you can think of like dancing. If you're learning a new dance move, you probably need to do it slowly at first, and then you can do it quickly. Same with martial arts. When you learn all the forms, they first tell you to do it basically in slow motion, and then eventually you can do it quickly and smoothly. So that is my tip number 4. Go in slow motion. Try to just slow it down so that you understand what your mouth and your tongue is doing to make the sound that you want. That's number 4. And my last tip is and this is something that I really wish that I did, because it serves 2 purposes, is 1, to record or keep track of your reps. So like exercise, if you think about when you're trying to become fit, or if you have a personal trainer, they will probably give you a program. And in that program, it will tell you, okay, push-ups, we want you to do 3 sets of push-ups, 15 push-ups per set. And when you're done, you can say, all right, I did 15, or I only managed to do 14. Okay. And what does that do is it tells you where you are. It helps you track your progress. And when you do your next set, you will then be able to see like, oh, I managed to do a little bit better than my previous set. And that's called deliberate practice. It's because you're deliberately, which means on purpose, you're practicing to improve on where you were. And if you don't record your reps or your practice in this case, then sometimes it can be hard to know where you were. You may not be able to tell, am I improving? Is this progress? Or have I always sounded like this? On top of recording your reps to reflect regularly. It could be like a weekly goal. It doesn't have to be like, I'm gonna hit my pronunciation goals in 6 months or a year. Just focus on this week, I want to get better with the way that I say the S sound. Because I personally grew up with a lisp. A lisp is when you say the S sound as SH, and that's not ideal. And that was me, and I had crooked teeth, and I thought that was because of my teeth, but I was able to practice to not sound like that, even with those teeth. So you want to set a weekly goal and say, this week I'm just going to focus on words with the S sound, 5 letters or 5 words a day. I'm going to record myself 5 words a day, and I want to be able by next week to be able to say the T at the end of words that have T in them, for example. And then by the start of next week, you can then review your progress and you go, okay, how did I do? I set this goal, I did these things, did it help? Did I manage to make progress? And then based on that, you can then set your next goal for the next week. And ideally, you want to have an accountability partner that can help. Because sometimes we set a reminder on our phone to be like, all right, check in on friends or do your exercises at 5 p.m. We see the alert come up on our phone, and what we do, sometimes we just swipe it away, right? Because it's easy to do that. Sometimes you're like, can't do it today, and you just swipe. But if you have an accountability partner or person that will keep track and contact you, right, to say, hey, John, you told me that you were going to do 5 exercises, vocal exercises or pronunciation exercises by Friday. How did you go? Then it might make you feel like, oh man, I kind of have to do that. Otherwise, it will look bad to the person that is helping to keep me accountable. So yes, ideally, you'd want to record your reps, reflect regularly, and have an accountability buddy. Could be your friend, it could be potentially me. So one of the things that I can do for you is I also do one-on-one coaching. So we can do a Zoom session. I can even help guide you with what exercises specifically you can do to improve certain parts of your voice or your pronunciation, depending on what you're working on. And every week we can check in and I can make sure that are you hitting those goals, keep you accountable. So those are the top 5 tips, 5 steps that I would recommend my younger self to do if I was learning how to improve my English speaking or my pronunciation from the beginning. And I hope this video helped. If you did, a like and subscribe would be amazing. Any support is awesome and always appreciated. And if you feel like it will help anyone that you know, whether it's your friend, your family, please by all means share it to them, because communication is such an important skill anyone can learn. It's such an important skill because it helps in so many different parts of your life. It can help with work, it can help with your friends. And for me, it's helped with all of those things, and it helped me get together with my partner. So, and with AI coming in, human to human communication is getting more and more important. If you would like me to cover anything else that would help you with your communication, please let us know in the comments and we will see what we can do. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.